I realized I didn't know that much about the civil rights movement living in St. Louis, but growing up and thinking about it and looking at videos, I always asked myself, what would you have done? Would you have had the courage to show up? Would you have had the courage to be at a lunch counter? And I didn't have to answer that question until 2014. And so when Michael Brown happened, I had to answer the question for myself. Will you stay in your house? Will you stay in your safe church? Or will you try and be a part of the change that's happening in your city? And I decided to become a part of the change.
She's very tenacious, not one to give up very easily. If she believes in something, she advocates for it to the end. Working throughout the community, doing various Bible studies and organizing marches. She was on the streets in Ferguson. So just an all-around advocate and teacher and mentor.
Becoming part of the change for me has been my involvement with Metropolitan Congregations United. Some people know it as MCU. It is an organization for people of faith who come together to work on issues within the community. We do work, particularly right now in St. Louis, around what we call Pathway to Power. They can determine by third grade which children they believe will go on to college and which children they believe will funnel through our prison industrial system. And so what our goal is to break that pipeline, to give children a chance to succeed, to give children a chance at an education and a good life.
Some of the things that she makes look so easy, you know, I know they aren't without a struggle, but if it's worth having, it's worth struggling for.
For me, all of it ties into justice and faith for me, because that's a part of my faith, to do justice. I was asked to work with Flourish St. Louis before it became Flourish St. Louis, because St. Louis has an extremely high infant mortality rate. Why is it that 1 in every 5 baby born in St. Louis will not make it to a healthy first birthday? That doesn't make sense to me. And so working with Flourish St. Louis, to me, is also a justice issue.
Providing compassion along with advocacy, I think has been her biggest effect.
Working with Magdalene St. Louis, another justice issue, helping women to come out of human trafficking and drug addiction. And so for me, all of it ties into justice and faith for me, because that's a part of my faith, to do justice. I believe we're put on this earth to thrive, to enjoy the beauty that God has created. And whatever I can do to help that, I'm gonna do that. I'm just proud to be a part of these organizations and what they do.
My parents were involved in the civil rights movement as a child, and I was taken to demonstrations when I was little. And I believed that working for justice was important, and I learned that early on from my parents.
By day, she's a social worker. By night and weekends and every other second that's available, she is a social activist trying to help people who are living on the streets.
About 12 years ago, I was looking for one of my clients. I couldn't find him, but I saw a man slumped over. So I drove up to him and was trying to get him to go to the hospital, and he couldn't get in the car. And so I called an ambulance, begged them to take him, and they wouldn't do it. I went over to the Walgreens nearby and bought lots of these little tiny blankets, which felt kind of pathetic. And I covered him up in the blankets. Well, I woke up around 3 in the morning that night, and I thought, oh, I should go check on him. And I didn't do it, and he died that night. And it was one of the worst moments of my life. And I asked people afterwards, I said, let's do something more.
She started a group called St. Louis Winter Outreach. And for a number of years, they went and found people and gave them blankets and tried to take them to shelter. But then they realized that there was no shelter to take them.
So we began to open winter shelters. People could come and know they had a place for the winter. And at the end of the winter, we decided not to close it. We decided to turn it into permanent housing. So this coming year, we're going to open our 5th, what we call a CC house. I really believe that we all need community. We all need places where we can really be our best selves. And you do that better in small settings. That's why St. Louis Winter Outreach focuses on opening a lot of smaller shelters and wants to build small communities in our neighborhood.
She has that passion. She lives it every day in every way. And then she combines that with the vision about things that can be done to make a difference.
I know a woman who I've known for probably 25 years. She's been homeless all that time, and she, because of our CC House effort, is now housed and has been for about 2.5 years. And she said to me, I didn't realize how much time I spent being homeless, how exhausting it was for me every day. To get up, to figure out where I was gonna go that day, how was I gonna shower, how was I gonna get food, how I was gonna get across town or anywhere I needed to go because I had no money and no bus fare. And she said, now I have a house, and I have a place to stay, a place to live, food to have. And now I'm thinking about other things I can do with my life.
The impact of what she has done has meant saving people's lives.
And there's so many people who do this work, and I'm convinced by the number of people involved that we can radically change the face of homelessness in this country. And it's my goal to be part of ending homelessness in our city.
There's been times when things haven't been so perfect for me, and somebody just giving me a smile made the biggest difference in the world to me. And so I wanted to give that back to other people.
Shannon is remarkable. She doesn't know it. Shannon does wonderful things and doesn't want anybody to know that she did it.
I was a stay-at-home mom, and after I got divorced, I needed to get a career, and I had done some event coordination, so I started promoting my business through business networking groups, and that's where I met April. She was such a phenomenal person to meet, and I liked everything she talked about, that we started getting to know each other a little bit more. And then she said, you know, why don't you come join our group? The name of that group is Aletheia. Aletheia works with nightlife strippers, prostitutes. They've come from very difficult situations, and we try to help them out of those situations if they so choose.
The whole idea is to let them know that there's somebody outside of the strip clubs that care about them. At 4 in the morning when she rolls in and she's just exhausted and can't sleep, and just the things that she's seeing, that she's hearing, it's heartbreaking.
These girls that are in there a lot of times are in very abusive relationships. They have a lot of times children to raise and, bills to pay, and this is the only thing they know. And since I've been doing it, we've gotten 8 girls out of the clubs, help them get education, help them get places to live, just basically get on their feet and get back into society. Then I started moving from that to some other volunteer work. April introduced me to another man named Jake, and Jake Austin runs the shower truck. And when I first met Jake, he was just giving out hygiene products.
He and Shannon met downtown. She started throwing out some ideas about how to raise money and how to do things, and he wanted her involved in this, and she wanted to be part of it as well.
So we would follow around food trucks that would hand out food to the homeless, and we would set up a hygiene table. And a man walked up to him one day and he handed it out to him, and the man said, this is great, but what am I supposed to do with the shampoo? And so that sparked the idea for the shower truck. We started raising funds and bought a used box truck, and then somebody outfitted the truck. Our goal is to have 20 trucks by 2020. It is an amazing feeling to watch somebody get into the shower truck and come out of the shower truck with the biggest smile in the world. A shower can change your attitude. It can make you feel good about yourself.
She's like a butterfly when she's down there because she's bouncing from person to person. A lot of them call her mom. They get down there and she's just kind of a mainstay. They all know to look for her, and she's there to help.
I want people to be able to feel like somebody cares, feel like somebody out there wants to just a friendly smile or treat them like a human. I think if everybody gave just a few minutes of time, what an amazing world we'd live in.
When you see someone come out of the darkness of a dangerous situation and through our help lift themselves up, it's just wonderful.
I'm sure that Vicki Dolan does not know the number of people whose lives she has touched, whose lives she has impacted, whose lives she has made better. She's a founding member of Commercial Real Estate Women of St. Louis. She saw a need.
We founded our chapter here in 1982 with literally a handful of women found themselves lone soldiers in a male-dominated industry and decided to do something about it. Today we have 200 members. We provide education opportunities, we provide scholarships, leadership, training, and mentoring within our local chapters to all of our members. When I was on the board with Crew, we decided that as successful professional women, we needed to take on a philanthropic mission, and Safe Connections was natural.
The Safe Connections work is to prevent and to end domestic and sexual violence. And that's because we believe that everyone deserves to be safe and healthy in their relationship. Vicki has been involved with Safe Connections for at least 2 decades as a volunteer, and then more recently as a board member and as our board chair.
When I saw what they were doing to bring our survivors back to light, to help them regain their lives and self-image and help them move through to be successful individuals, it just seemed like a perfect fit for me, because it was taking that destruction and turning it into a positive life for someone.
Vicki's also involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and has made dramatic impact there as well.
I found out about AFSP because I myself attended a survivor group when I lost my daughter, Carolyn. After going through my grieving in 2013, I felt it was time to do whatever I could to save someone else that grief and to save a life.
When she has passion, when she has interest, when she has a belief in something, she doesn't just believe in it. She becomes part of it and makes it sure that that organization or that effort grows and has an impact on our community.
My special symbol is the butterfly, because to me, the butterfly symbols rebirth and hope. And of course, this is my most prized necklace because it reminds me of Carolyn and the hope and the rebirth that I'm hoping to provide in my own small way through Safe Connections and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
I am a judge in St. Louis County, and I volunteer everywhere someone needs my help.
She wants to help people and bring people together whenever she can. Her mother had a saying that she lives by: while other people are sleeping, you should be working. So she's always working, she's always doing something.
Having to be an interpreter for my mother when we first came into this country, we would go to the grocery store, and as we were checking out, the clerk would look at my mother, and then she'd look at me, and then she'd look at my mother, as if we didn't belong together. And there was just such disdain in their eyes for us just being in existence. I felt that justice was not being served in the eyes of, a child. I think something just welled up in me that one day when I was old enough or big enough that I would straighten all of that out.
She's founded organizations such as the Missouri Asian Bar Association. That came as a result of a conversation between Judge Titleman and herself and a couple of other people, and they decided they needed an organization.
The reason they wanted me to do that is because I'm not only Asian American, but I'm African American. And the African American bar, the Mound City Bar Association, wanted to have a sisterhood with that organization. So I was really excited about bringing those two organizations together. And so I thought the best way to do this is to have what we call now a unity dinner and invite everybody.
She's on the board of Hope House here in St. Louis. She's an honorary counsel for the Republic of Korea. She's done work with the Korean Veterans Association as well. The Links organization, which she is a part of, recently did a mock trial involving children in her courtroom, and the kids did very well.
The young girls that come in at 7 or 8 years old, and we've actually progressed through college. A lot of them are lawyers today. Some of them are judges today, simply for taking the time out and having a cup of coffee and letting them know that You don't have to be at a certain place to get to where you want to be. So I think role models are very important, and mentoring is very important. And so I try to share my experiences with people to let them know that I wasn't always, what you see right now. I came from a long way.
When you see someone do something, it always looks easy. But of course, it's much more difficult when you do it. But once you've done it, you have confidence in yourself and the knowledge that you can achieve, you can do. And this is what she's trying to instill in these young people and help them see that in themselves.
It fills us up with hope, and it gives us new connections and different ways of thinking. If I can make it, you can make it.
When I was about 11 years old, I organized a fundraiser for Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital by doing a backyard carnival. And I literally remember bringing the check to the hospital and feeling like it was really good to give that.
The attributes Rachel has can almost sound tireless because, they sound trite, but she is relentless.
I lost one of my best friends, Teresa Butts, to a horrible act of sexual violence. She and her partner were attacked in the home they shared in Seattle, Washington in July of that year. Another childhood friend of mine and I, Jean Purcell, we got together and we started talking about what could we do to honor Teresa's life while also supporting other survivors of sexual assault. And that is how the Angel Band Project came into the world. She was from a very musically gifted family. Music was that place where we could go that was safe to grieve. The initial reason we began the project was to create a benefit album to support survivors of sexual assault. So when that was over, I started researching music therapy because I was seeing that music was weaving its way into all of these different ways that we were connecting people. And I thought, if music helped me process losing a friend, so why couldn't music therapy be used as a tool for supporting survivors who have gone through that kind of trauma? So I called Dr. Cynthia Briggs at Maryville University, and together we started a pilot program at an agency here in St. Louis at Safe Connections. And that's where we tested this program to see if it would have therapeutic benefits.
Music therapy is really focused on giving people a voice, both literally and metaphorically, giving them ways to express and to explore psychological, personal issues.
In a year's time, we discovered that yes, that music therapy was helping victims heal. We sponsor music therapy programs at no cost to survivors who are going through crisis counseling or are in a safe house or a shelter environment. We use music to really engage people to connect on this issue and to get actively involved in taking a stand on it.
The participants, follow up later with Angel Band and say this made such a difference. They, at the end of the time that they might be a part of a group, they express what a difference this made for them in terms of beginning to come to grips with the experience they'd had.
And because the outcomes were so great, we decided to grow the program, expand into now 8 agencies that we work with.
At this point, Angel Band has served over 300 individuals and has plans for still more, both in the St. Louis area and in other cities.
Now that I see hundreds of survivors who have benefited from our programs, I know that anything is possible, truly, if we just take the time to help one person at a time.
At the age of 2, my then daughter said to me, "I a boy." And I just remember as a mother feeling every alarm in my body sort of go off in that moment. I knew what it meant to be transgender, and I would just remember feeling very, very afraid. I told my husband that I was going to look for a therapist, and I just couldn't believe that there was no one in the St. Louis area that had any experience with this sort of a declaration from a child so young, and just feeling incredibly alone.
My personal connection to Kim and Transparent is when my nephew Ian became my nephew Ian when he was 10 years old. And he had been telling us as a family that he was a boy, and we had been navigating that. Really, my sister had been. And she came upon Transparent, and it was just this little baby organization meeting, I think once a month at Children's Hospital for support groups.
Transgender experience may be one of the most misunderstood human experiences out there. We started with, I think, 4 families, and it just gradually over time grew. We didn't have a single month where we didn't add families to the group once the word got out that we were in existence.
They are educating physicians and schools and therapists on what these kids need, and advocating for these families in the medical system here in St. Louis and beyond. Kim is an integral player in creating the Washington University Transgender Center at Children's Hospital.
We are now a St. Louis Children's Hospital community partner, and I'm very proud of that, and to have that recognition and status within the transgender community. I think that's important.
People are taking notice of Kim's work in the gender identity world, and in 2015 she was awarded the Human Rights Campaign's Ally for Equality Award, a very prestigious honor for someone impacting this community.
It's the best thing I've ever done in my life, to be a part of that, to be a person in this world supporting those families so that they don't have to go through what my husband and I went through alone.
So my nephew today is doing great. He's about the same age as Kim's son, and they're both thriving in their lives and with their friends, and they're doing great.
My son is very proud of the work that Transparent does. I make sure that he knows that Transparent exists as a direct result of him. The fact that not everybody may be on board right away, or not that everybody gets it, he is okay with that. And he kind of just marches forward and holds his head high. And I'm just inspired by him every single day.
I've been involved with different community organizations over the years for a long time, and saw a need where there were a lot of smaller nonprofits that were doing amazing work. The problem is overhead and expenses that forbid them from doing what they needed to do. So we started Riverbend Family Ministries to say, what if we pulled smaller nonprofits together?
Riverbend Family Ministries, to me, really is an incubator. It's really kind of a one-stop shop for families who are in crisis.
We've pulled like-minded nonprofits together that worked with our families that are affected by trauma, most of the time due to violence, addiction, homelessness, and poverty. Those 6 agencies, smaller nonprofits, have pulled together under one roof and holistically worked together to wrap around our families that are most vulnerable in Madison County.
She doesn't just have vision. Tammy works that vision. She volunteers. She is a volunteer executive director who not just casts the vision for the programming that's needed for our community, but she has boots on the ground, and she is talking directly with clients who come in. She will take that phone call of the addict who's in crisis and needing help, and she will say, come down here. And if Tammy is available, she's the one sitting on a couch encouraging them and talking to them about services that they need.
And so to be able to pull some of those smaller nonprofits into Riverbend to be able to work for the whole of the family has just been a dream, but it's been very healing for me as well, to be able to see the change that happens in families.
So many of our families who come to us that are in crisis, whether they're part of the refuge program that's housed at Riverbend Family Ministries, or Heartbeats, which is housed at Riverbend Family Ministries, families will tell us, if it wasn't for Tammy coming alongside of me and empowering me and telling me that I can do the hard work that needs to be done, we wouldn't be here today.
We actually are seeing generations changed by the work that is being done. Some of our horrid traumas that you've read on the paper, that you've seen on our news, are families that walk through our doors, that we are able to give hope and healing to and put them on a different path.
And Tammy really empowers people to look through a lens of empathy. And if that doesn't change a community, I don't know what will.
There's so many lives that need to be given hope and healing, and there's so many families that are broken that the work's just not done. It's just not done. And so I will continue to volunteer until I can't. And that's why I do it, because there's just a lot of work yet to be done.
People really want to do good. They really want to succeed. And they really just usually need that little bit of encouragement or help. I do believe in the goodness of those we serve, and they just need a chance.
I've known Marilyn since 2008 when she came on the board at the National Council of Jewish Women. Worked with her hand in hand to develop some programs and some new initiatives, and she really takes it to heart. I mean, she treats her volunteer work as if it's a full-time job.
The project that I'm really most proud about is the Healing Hearts Bank, the micro-lending bank with National Council of Jewish Women. Understanding that economic security was one way of allowing domestic violence survivors to leave a bad situation and to stay out of it, we thought we could do something about this in St. Louis. So fast forward to 2011, we opened our first bank, which was at Lydia's house. What it meant was that women could take out loans of $500 at 5% interest to help secure their current job or pursue other jobs. These are really women who are really getting a second chance.
And the really unique part about the program is that the women who were borrowing were also volunteers, so they were helping other women, and we did credit reporting as part of the agency.
We now have 6 banks that serve 17 agencies, and we've given out over 115 loans.
And under Marilyn's leadership, she developed a sustainable program that not only helps women in St. Louis, but was actually copied by other NCJW groups around the country.
I have had the privilege of meeting these women, talking to them, and having them share their stories with me.
She is active with Jews United for Justice and some social and economic justice around payday lending. She has been involved nationally with NCJW, has attended a lot of our advocacy meetings.
Another agency that I'm very involved and very passionate about is Ready Readers, because I am so passionate about early childhood literacy. Ready Readers reads to 10,000 kids a week with 500 readers. So many times when I will come into the room, they will sort of pull me and say, "Miss Marilyn, let me tell you about," and something that happened at home. And sometimes they'll relate things to a book we read. These kids are like little sponges.
It's a little bit like the Pied Piper. People like to follow Marilyn. They like to work on the projects that she's working on because they know they're going in the right direction.
One of my favorite quotes is from activist Marian Wright Edelman, and she really says it all. You're not obliged to win, but you're just obliged to wake up each morning and do the very best you can each day.
I'm a mother and I'm a social worker. I also happen to be married to Mark Wrighton, who's the Chancellor of Washington University. And that enables me to be the mother of 7,000 children instead of the 2 daughters I actually gave birth to.
I first met Risa back in the early 90s when she came to an organization that my husband and I are involved in, Our Little Haven, and she came to volunteer.
I had heard about an organization called Our Little Haven that was caring for the youngest victims of abuse and neglect. These are babies and toddlers who didn't have families to protect them. So one night a week I went down and I held babies and toddlers and I read them stories, and I got to be a little bit of a protection against a rather rough world for these young children.
And we enjoyed her presence there, her laughter, her humor, her tender care. And she did that for years.
With whatever resources I had and whatever knowledge I had, I wanted to be able to help children who just didn't have the things that all children should have.
And getting to know all the other things that Risa does is, the list is lengthy.
In 2001, I started an organization called Home Plate.
Her own daughter was away at college and feeling a little, homesick.
And she called me to tell me that she had this fabulous experience being invited to the home of one of her professors. And I realized I'm in a position to do that for 7,000 undergraduates here at Washington University. So I got a few of my friends together, and we started with a couple of kids who I dragged into the program, and just word of mouth and a little advertising. And now there's over 350 families providing wonderful dinners and a touch of home for probably 400 or 500 students at a time.
Her patience and her faith and her empathy come through in all her volunteer endeavors.
I met this woman, Charmaine Smith, who started this organization called Discovering Options, which pairs mentors with young, disadvantaged children in our city. And through that, I met a young girl, a 9-year-old named Chelsea Harris. And over the years, we developed a really strong relationship. In 2015, when Chelsea was on her way to a part-time job after school, and she was murdered. It was just a devastating experience, and that catapulted me to think of what we can do to curb this epidemic of violence that we're all experiencing.
She was able to get the community response and have a collaborative effort to respond to that.
I've been very lucky in life, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to give back. It sounds like a cliche when I hear myself say that, but it's true.